Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Traversing the Stars podcast. How are my loyal listeners? Thank you for your continued support. And remember to click that subscribe button, everybody. This is a very special episode because boarding the mothership is the legendary Larry Kenney. You know him as Lion-O on Thundercats. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Kenney. It's a great honor to talk with you. I'm a big fan of yours from all the way back to my childhood.
Well, hello, Mr. Haas, and thank you very much. And I love hearing that.
Do you ever get tired of it? I mean, I imagine everyone who talks to you is like, I've been a fan of yours for 20, 30, 30 40, almost 40 years.
Yeah, well, I've been around that long. That's why. And no, I never tire of hearing it, Jeffrey. Do you prefer Jeff or Jeffrey?
Jeff is fine.
Okay, Jeff. I never tired of hearing it. You know, as a matter of fact, I just appreciate the opportunity to hear it from people in person, like at Comic-Cons, and I consider Zoom kind of in person, you know, because you're talking face to face to somebody. Because, you know, for many, many years, I would get letters from fans and of Thundercats or whatever, and that was nice. But now to be able to meet them at Comic-Cons or like this, I just love it, and I love it when people, you know, will come up to my table, and I love especially when they didn't know before that I do other things besides Thundercats and Silverhawks, you know. And they look at the table and they go, "You were the voice of my childhood," and that means a lot to me. I really love that.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's totally true. I think there's a lot of people who are just so excited to be able to talk with you and meet you because, like I said, you're that important. But what I didn't know actually is that your career actually started as a disc jockey and a guest on Imus In the Morning, where you did like political figures impersonation. I did not know that, and my father's a big fan of Imus, so he'll enjoy the interview then as well.
Great.
So, when did you know that you had a gift for impersonation and voice acting?
In radio, when I was 15 years old, 2 weeks before my 16th birthday, in Peoria, Illinois, that I'm from that area. And I had always done, my mom used to tell me that from the time I could talk, I was mimicking cartoon voices and voices on the commercials and things like that, you know. So for some reason that was implanted in me. I don't know, that I loved, you know, doing that. And all through school, I remember all my teachers telling me, you know, Larry, you're a smart kid, but all this goofing around, I hope you find a way to make a living with those little voices and the funny impressions. I did. I'm not recommending being class clown to anybody, but it worked for me.
So the ability to do all those different voices, I mean, is it natural? I mean, it's something that you work at. How are you doing that with your voice to be able to pull that off?
With me, it's totally natural. I don't think even when I first started out that I rehearsed that much or practiced that much. I've always found that if there was a voice that especially an impression that I wanted to do, I would try it. And if I didn't think I was there, I would drop it. I won't do it unless I'm right on it. You know, otherwise it's not an impression. It's some dumb guy doing, you know, what he thinks is an impression of something. So I've never really, you know, worked that hard at it. That's, to be honest with you, I'm kind of lazy. I don't like to work on things. And fortunately for me, I was gifted, if you will, with something that I can hear a voice and say it back to you in the same, you know, sound the same way as that sounds. And so I started in radio as a disc jockey, not a DJ. Today is different. A DJ is different. We used to play Beatles records, and you know, now it's. I'm not so sure. I started that, but even then on my radio show, I would incorporate little funny voices, you know, and impressions. And I kept that up as I moved across the country to bigger and bigger radio markets, to Cleveland, Chicago, and then New York. And then, wow, I'm getting phone calls, you know, like, hey, first of all, can I be your agent? And secondly, then my agent would get the phone calls, direct them to me, you know, to do commercials. And then came Thundercats and everything. So it really I won't try to be noble and say I never really worked hard at it. I've worked hard my whole life. You know, I've worked hard, just not in the rehearsal area or whatever. But I put in the effort, and I feel proud of my career.
So when you were doing impersonations on Imus, were you also writing your own material, or were they being written for you?
I never wrote my own material on Imus. Charles McCord, who was the newsman on the show. Yeah, Charles McCord wrote everything I did on that. Well, I shouldn't say everything. My job was to come in and have one or two segments where I would do like a 2.5 to 3 minute comedy bit as General George Patton, as Richard Nixon, as Ted Kennedy, something like that. And Charles wrote every one of those. He was a genius writer. And there were times during the rest of the show when I would ad lib as that character. But Charles, I can never give enough. Of all the interviews I've done, I can never give enough credit to Charles McCord. Charles McCord. He was a genius writer.
So when you're doing impersonation, like, when do you know you got him? I mean, is it like professional, or is there like an essence to the voice? What are you doing when you finally say this is ready for air?
Good question. I can hear it. When I hear it, I know it's there. For me, at least, you know. Impressions are kind of strange. I think people perceive impressions differently, as we all, as humans, perceive things differently. There are people who will hear me do Richard Nixon, for example, and say, "My God, he sounds just like him." And there are people who say, I do the same thing myself. You know, that guy doesn't sound like so and so. So it's a very subjective, is it? Subjective thing. But I know when I've got the thing down. And if I can't do it as well as I think I should, if it doesn't sound just like him to me, I move on. Let's try another voice. You know, I did a lot of them around myself. And that came into play too. Then when I got to New York, and not only was able to start doing national commercials, you know, like Count Chocula and Cocoa Puffs, things like that. Then in 85 or 84 came, voila, Thundercats.
Yeah.
Which was, we were all shocked. When I say we, I mean all the people, all the New York actors. In my business, you'll find there are New York actors and LA actors, you know, because most of the work is done on both coasts.
Yeah.
And at that point, 1984, 85, there hadn't been, I won't say any, but very few animated series, animated specials, anything done in New York City. It was all done in California. So when my agent called me one day and said, "Hey, I want you to go to this particular place at a particular time and audition for this thing," it's a cartoon show, if you want to call it that, animated series. I was very surprised, and I think a lot of the other actors in New York were too, that they were going to do it in New York. And that was the beginning of it. And then from then on, it burst wide open, you know, with Silvercats and Tiger Sharks, and then Netflix, Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon.
Yeah, other channels that started doing, because previously there had been 3 outlets, you know, ABC, NBC, and CBS. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing 12.
I'm in my early 40s.
God bless you, son.
Thank you so much.
Well, I just turned 75. So when I was a kid,
Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Woke up one day and I said, "Oh, Jesus." 75. I don't feel it though. I feel 15. That'd be a big deal for you, wouldn't it? Have somebody
I mean, it would be bad for you, but my podcast would explode.
Well, you know what? When I get to the point where I feel like it's about there, we'll do another one of these, and maybe I can help you out a little bit.
You know, I'd totally make a reel out of it, and I'd be like, you know, I feel bad, but at the same time, thank you so much for dying on my program. Just kidding, I'm sorry.
You're a sick man, Jeffrey.
Sorry.
So did I ever finish the question you asked me? I'm not sure I did. That happens a lot now.
No, that's no word. No, you totally answered that question. So moving on to Thundercats. So, like I said, for those who may not know, you're Lino on the Thundercats, which once again is one of the classic animated series I think in history. I mean, it came out around the Transformers, GI Joe, but then Thundercats was one of the premier animated shows of the 80s.
Mhm.
So, what were you told about Lino when you got the part? Like, what was what tell you how to prepare for it?
Well, I got to the audition, and everything in my business, the voiceover business, is audition. If you audition for it, you go to your agent says, okay, now Tuesday at 10 a.m. you'll go to this place, and so I got the audition, and there were like 50 or 60 other people waiting to audition, which is that's how they do it. And the walls, I recall, were covered with pics of or prints of the drawings of the characters.
Yeah.
So you can see, and then each one would have under the character would have a synopsis of what he's, a paragraph, he's this, he's that, he's the Lord of the Thundercats. Well, that's why I stopped immediately. Said, I want to be him. And they asked us, they told us, we'd like you to audition for one Thundercat and one mutant, one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I want to read for Lionel, the Lord of the Thundercats. And then for something drew me to Jackal Man, one of the mutants. I don't know what it was. I do. I think what it was when I saw him and I saw Jackal Man. Oh, well, he must mean half man, half jackal. So now what the hell is a jackal? Right?
Right.
All I knew was the jackal is, to me, kind of like a wolf, but nastier.
Yeah.
Something, I mean, I watch a lot of public TV and nature and all that, but I still haven't seen one on jackals, so I'm not sure. But anyway, I thought, okay, he would be wily and sneaky, and crazy. Now the Lion-O, they told us, the Thundercats themselves, we don't want any, like, quote, cartoon voices.
Yeah.
We want them to sound like real people, because they are, after all, half human, half animal. So, okay, so Lion-O was just my voice, that's really all it was. And, but the mutants, we could really have fun with. I mean, any actor will tell you the most fun parts to play are the bad guys, because you can overact. You can, as we call it, chew the scenery.
Yeah.
So I said, Jackal Man. Now I had to come up with a voice for Jackal Man. So suddenly popped into my head one of my favorite cartoon shows when I was a kid, and that was The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Oh, yes.
Love that show.
It's a very good show.
Yeah. There was a character, Snidely Whiplash.
Okay.
Who was the poster boy for what you imagine an old-time villain to be, with a top hat, the cape, the mustache like this. And he was always after this girl, Nell, and he would go, I'm going to get you, Nell, and tie you to the railroad track. So that, I kind of channeled that, and but made him a little, it's going to be a little different from that, or I'll get sued by that company. And let's give him something else. And it was more of a cackle, I think I gave him. So it came out, we must get the Thundercats, yes. That became Jackal Man. And I was fortunate enough to be given both of those parts.
That's absolutely awesome. The interesting thing about playing Lionel too is that he, in many ways, so he's basically a 13-year-old boy in a body of an adult, based on cartoon shenanigans that I don't want to confuse my listeners with, but through cartoon shenanigans, he's a little boy who's an adult. So how are you playing a character and incorporating the fact that that's a fact about him?
That he's only like 13 years old or so?
That mentally he's kind of like a 13-year-old who kind of woke up adult.
Well, I'm trying to think back now. The way I played it voice-wise, the way I played him was just my voice, but younger. It sounds dumb, of course, but that's, of course, what I had to do. So he eventually developed into sounding like Snarf. We've got a problem. I think Mum Ra's up to something, but I'm not sure what it is. But when he was, actually, I thought he was supposed to be younger at the beginning, maybe 7 or 8, but let's say he was 13. So I just changed that and raised the whatever it is, the timbre or something up to Snarf, come here. They want me to be Lord of the Thundercats, but I'm not sure I can do it, Snarf. I mean, I'm just a kid, you know. That's where I got that. It just the lack of confidence that kids, you know, young kids have, and that excitement about the world, you know, the new stuff. Oh my God, I'm alive. And
I mean, I just think it's such a hard character to balance from an outsider's perspective, because of the likes of the one hand, he's the kid, but he also has to do the voice in a way that's this heroic leader as well. That can't be at all easy to balance.
Well, I never actually had to balance it, Jeff, in terms of within the same scene. I never had to be in the same scene or even the same show. I'm sure in the same show I did. Young Lion-O and, quote, mature Lion-O. In other words, I never had to have a dialogue with myself, as far as I remember anyway.
Yeah.
So there wasn't that problem. And like I said, just we did a few episodes with me as the young boy. Maybe some more, maybe some flashbacks later on. Episode 111, I don't know. I always find it funny when fans come up and say, and I can always spot them coming, you know, God love them, they come, they know everything about this show. I mean, the fans know more than I know, but they know more than the writers know about this show. And I try not to laugh when they come up because they're serious and they, you know, they're so happy to meet you. Mr. Kenney, oh, I have a quick question. In episode 122, and I go, oh no. Yes. Well, Lion-O was coming through the door with a sword of omens in his right hand. But then when he came through the door, he had the sword in his left hand. What do you have to say about that? I usually just say, you got to get out more, man. You really do. It's a cartoon. It's a cartoon show.
Well, on that note, in the episode Return to Thundera, well, actually, in that episode, Return to Thundera, you actually are the voice of Tor as well as Lion-O, and you guys are many times sharing the same scene. So as a voice actor, how easy and what decisions are made to make sure that both voices are distinct in communicating with each other, and how quickly are you able to just switch over from that one character's voice to Lion-O without slipping into the one maybe by accident, like in the conversation?
It's a very good question, Jeff. You mean like when one of my characters is having a conversation with another one of my characters?
Because I think in Return to Thundera, you have Tor as one character, but then you also are playing Lion-O. You're in the same scene talking with each other. I'm thinking to myself, I mean, me personally, who can't do any voices, would probably like slip back and forth and be like, wait, is that Lion-O or Tor? I can't remember who I'm doing anymore at this point. I don't know how someone like you pulls it off.
Well, a lot of actors faced with that situation they will opt to do all of one character's lines, all of, let's say, Lion-O, and then record all of, let's say, Jackalman's lines, if those were the two who were talking to each other. And then, of course, the engineers can easily splice it together. And back then, that's what it was. It was splicing tape. It wasn't, you know, hit the delete button.
Right.
Command V. You know?
Makes life easier now.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But some of the actors, I think most of them, at least I worked with, prefer to do one character at a time, and then have the engineers, you know. I had more fun doing it in what I call real time. If Lion-O and Jackalman were face to face, and that happened many times during the 130 episodes, I prefer to just read it like, Jackalman, what are you doing? Yeah, Lion-O, wouldn't you like to know? I know you and Mum are up to something, but I'm going to stop you. Try. To me, it's more, maybe it's showing off. I don't know. But it was more fun for me to do it that way. And now there were times when I did it that way. And Lee Doniker, our wonderful director, would say, Larry, we're all impressed, but we had a little bleed over between this line and that line. Could you do that one for us again? And I say, okay.
That's awesome. I mean, and the cast of Thundercats were so great. You had Earl Hammond, Earl Hyman, Lynn Linton. What was it like to perform with all these actors?
It was incredible. It was incredible. I had only been in New York at the time. We started recording, I think, Thundercats in 83 or 4. We recorded several months before it got on the air. And so I was still fairly new in terms of, working my way up to the big time where we get network commercials and animated shows and things like that. And I had met all these people before at auditions for commercials and things like that, and always admired every one of them. I mean, my God, the talent we had. Lynn Lipton, who was to this day a revered Broadway show legend, and a lot of movies and things. And Earl Hammond, who played Mum-Ra, was. Well, they were all recognized as some of the top people in the business, and here I am, just new coming in. So at first I was a little worried, I guess, but I've always had the ability to turn that worry into a better performance. If something about me, I can always say, all right, let's show them. Not in a snotty way, because I would lay back, and then when it was my turn, I would say, okay, give it your best now. You're working with the pros here. And not only on this side of the glass, meaning in part of the studio that has the microphones in it, and then there's glass, and then there's, people know that by now. But on the other side of the glass, those people are from Rankin Bass. I grew up watching Rankin Bass animated Christmas specials when I was a kid. I don't know what year or two you remember, but they had Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer with Fred Astaire, I think. Frosty the Snowman, Burl Ives was on that. So, and I didn't know until I got to the audition that it was a Rankin Bass production. All I knew is it was a cartoon show. So I got there and I saw a Rankin Bass production. I thought, oh man, how great would this be? I grew up as a little kid watching those things, and now work for them, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, like I said, there's as you mentioned, so many people who love Thundercats. Why do you think Thundercats? Because not every show has the lifespan of Thundercats. I mean, like I said, there's a few from the 80s. Just said Transformers did it, G.I. Joe, a couple of others. But Thundercats is one of the few that survived and has survived well and been remade now a few times. Why do you think the show has survived so well?
I mean, mostly because of me.
That's a good answer. Hell, a lot of people would agree.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
So underneath, the episode now in reels, Larry Kenney admits that he made the show himself.
No, I think I don't know. The thing about it is, if you look back on it, of course, when we were recording the show, we were just a bunch of actors that were lucky to get a job.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things you do, you go and record it and you never hear, but again, it's put on the shelf. It's, but we started doing this thing, and about the third episode, we were having lunch and we said, this is a good show. This is really written well. And then when they started showing us the animation from Japan, wow, that's great. And then finally the music, they played us the music. Well, that was it. You'd never heard music like that on a cartoon show, an animated series, that heavy metal sound, And so we all thought, this really has a good chance. All the whole while, bearing in mind, since we were actors, all of us had been in the business for a while, we realized that doesn't mean everything. You can have the greatest, whether it's a movie, Broadway show, any cartoon show, sitcom, you can have the greatest actors and the best writing, the best scripts, best music if there's music involved, the best director and all of that. But when you put it out there on television, there are a lot of other elements that come into play that you have no control of. What network is it on? How well do they promote it? What time slot do they give it? Do they give it Monday night at 6 p.m., which is definitely going to kill you? Or do they give it Friday night at 8 p.m., which is prime time? So many things like that. And So we all knew that if those things came into play, we thought we had a good shot of having a big hit.
I mean, the first season I think was like 62 episodes. I mean, that's insane. That from nowadays, I mean, from streaming, get like 8 episodes a season, but you had to do 62. I think 52 or 62 that first season.
65. It
65.
Was there are 135 episodes extant, as we say.
So I mean, how that must have killed you. I mean, that's your voice, 65 episodes doing all at one time in 1 year.
No, that's where you're wrong. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no, go ahead.
It would have been tough. We didn't do that. We did. Well, first we did the first 13 episodes, because when you're doing any kind of a show and you're trying to sell it to a network, you do 13 episodes. That just seems to be the standard. It's a quarter of a season. And if they like it, they'll buy it and they'll put it on. And then if midway through or 3/4 of the way through the run, they see the ratings are good. Yeah, let's buy another 26 weeks, and then it finally gets to let's buy a year. That's when you know you've got a hit. But as far as knowing when it was a hit, I have a story I love to tell, and thank God it's true, because I've told it so many times. Well, sometimes you tell a little story that you make it up and it's not really true. Right. It gets to be viral, as the kids say, and then you can't back out of it. But this is true. The show had been on for several months, and it was about 2 weeks before Christmas one year. And I went to Toys R Us, rest in peace, Toys R Us. And the last time I had been there were in the toy section. This whole thing's a toy section, isn't it? They had one aisle of Thundercats stuff, on this side and this side, with the action figures, the Thunder Tank, and all that kind of thing, the Sword of Omens and everything. This time I walk in and there are 3 aisles. That means 6 sides, nothing but Thundercats.
Oh, nice.
I thought, my God, we got a hit. This show. And as I'm walking up the aisle, I see 2 young boys, probably 8 to 10 years old, looking at the action figures. And I hear one of them say, "I'm going to get Tigra because he's really cool." And the other kid says, "Yeah, well, I'm going to be Panthro. He's got the nunchucks." Well, I couldn't help myself. I walked up, and said, "Excuse me, guys, why don't you get Lion-O? He's the one who says, Thundercats. Oh!" They looked at me like, and then they looked around for their mothers, Mom, this perverts. They thought, who is this guy? As normally they would. So I just kind of, put my head down and walked away. But as I walked away, I hear one of them say to the other one, "He didn't even sound like Lion-O."
That's the best part right there.
I loved it. I thought to myself, if he only knew,
He's probably watching maybe watch the show right now and be like, "Son of a bitch."
I've always hoped that, because I do a lot of podcasts and interviews with nice people like you, and I've always hoped that somebody would be watching it who was one of those boys and somehow get in touch with me and say I was one of those kids.
That'd be so funny. Like, could have had an autograph, and now look at us.
Yeah, $50 now, kid.
For him, 100 for bullshit for being addicted.
Yeah, that's it.
So the cool thing is, I mean, not only has Thundercats had that great run in the '80s, but like I said, it's had a remake of Thundercats Roar, where you played Jaga on the show for a few episodes, which was originally played by Earl Hammond. So when you played it as Jaga for this show, how did you feel about doing Jaga this time?
Well, first of all, Jeffrey, one of the big mistakes in my career is I signed a contract to do that show before I ever read a script or met the people involved. And that show turned out to be horrible, as we all know. It made me sick. But I had a contract, I had to do it. And so I'm sure I didn't put my all into the character. Well, yeah, I did, because I'm a professional. I did that. But you knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. That squiggly little way of animating things, and well, for example, I played Jaga, who in the original series was Earl Hammond. Jaga the wise, Lion-O, I'm going to give you all the story that you need. Okay. In this one, they've got me going, "Hey, Lionel, how's it going, kid?" Stuff like that, you know. So, but I would rather talk about the remake in 2011. Warner Brothers did a remake and had me play, and that one I played Claudius, Lionel's father, and I thought that was a great series, and I was really shocked when it was canceled after not even 2 full seasons, I think. So, like I said, you never know.
Well, the other thing that I heard rumors of is that there's a live action version of the Thundercats that's being produced. Do you think there's any way to recreate that same spark that the original series had? Like, can that be captured again? Was that a moment of its time? And do you think live action can ever equal what the cartoon is able to do?
Oh, those questions are beyond me, Jeff. I'm sorry. I can't. I don't think anybody could really, know enough about the business to answer that. I don't know as to whether there will even be a live action or a CGI. In 2010, Warner Brothers, who by that time had bought the rights to Thundercats, Silverhawks, and all the Rankin Bass portfolio, they announced they were going to do a CGI movie, and they even had hired a screenwriter and a director. Then 3 months later, they put that on the back shelf and said, we're going to do this new series, which came out in 2011. It came out, I think. And I played Claudius on that one just for a few episodes, And I thought that was good. But as I said earlier, you never know what the atmosphere is going to be like at the time, how they're going to treat it. Are they going to the network going to consider they're going to push it hard, or they're just going to throw it out there and see what sticks to the wall, So and still between then and now, there have been every few months there are rumors on the internet about there being a new Thundercats in the works. I've gotten to the point where I don't pay any attention to them.
I mean, I can't imagine a Thundercats without you being a part of it on some level. I mean, even if they did live out, you are Thundercats.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Totally my pleasure, sir. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm going to have dinner now. And you mean career-wise? Well, I'm still chugging. I don't. I'm still working, but not nearly like I used to. I mean, up until 4 or 5 years ago, well, before COVID, I was still going into Manhattan every day and auditioning for things. Now it's a few years later. I just turned 75 years old, so I'm not a kid anymore, and it's time to enjoy my grandkids and stuff like that. I'm still available. I still do. Well, I'm working on Teen Titans Go. I have a character on there called the Chief, I think it is. And I still do a few commercials. I do Skittles I've been doing for 25 years. The Skittles commercials?
Yeah.
I'm the guy at the end that says, feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow.
That's cool.
So I'm still doing those. And there will come a time when I just say, that's enough. Either I think my voice is not what it was, or I just, I'd rather lay here in my underwear, We'll see.
Well, Mr. Kenney, it's a total honor to talk with you. Like I said, my inner child is very happy right now having had a chance to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. It was a pleasure. And you did a great job. Okay, take care.